March 1st, I think Tesla's going to announce a vehicle that'll, they'll claim they're going to be able to produce for half the cost.
You think they're going to announce a car?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've definitely indicated that they're likely to.
Wow.
So I think it'll be a new model that, will be very economical and tuned to be a robo-taxi, probably, and that, it'll just like set the entire industry offsides on a cost basis again, as in, now kind of like industry is trying to like design how are we going to scale, and there are just I just think they're designing for a cost of manufacture that is going to not have them able to profitably compete with where Tesla's at.
But Charlie Munger says BYD is better.
I mean, I think that for one thing, the Chinese market is like a very different beast than the U.S. market, and
So
I
what
do think
average vehicle's what, $13,000-$14,000 there? Our average used a new car price $47,000, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I don't know about the Chinese average,
Sure.
but there is like a whole class of vehicles that's more like a neighborhood electric vehicle. So it depends on how many of those you bundle into how you do the averaging.
Okay.
But in net, I think within China, it's more likely that Tesla sits at a premium tier and is not competitive with real mass volume manufacturers hitting the Chinese market. We'll see. But I think that there's it's very clear to us that almost all of the auto market is going to become electric drivetrain based. We think within 5 years it'll be 90+% of the auto market. We also think the auto market is going to be smaller because robo-taxis will take up more miles than traditional vehicles. So there's going to be a compression in top line sales, but you end up with like 60 million EVs sold in 2027. And we think Tesla's going to
Worldwide, that is.
Worldwide, yeah.
Okay.
Tesla's going to command a plurality of that, some 20 million vehicles or so. And it's hard for me to see how at least a legacy automaker is able to successfully scale and compete. And then the startups, which I think designing an EV from the ground up is like a better way to approach the problem. There's a reason that Ford ended up with way too much harness in its vehicle, like you said, and it's because they probably didn't take a first principles approach to design, I just think that there's like huge problems in legacy automakers, even leaving aside the pressure they'll face from robotaxi and the fact that they have a lot of auto loans on their books that probably aren't going to look very good over the next few years.
My idea is that we would probably only really need a 20 kilowatt battery for most people. That now brings down the weight of the vehicle because you're carrying around a battery that's 1/3 the weight, certainly 1/3 the cost, maybe even less. And so it has an 80 to 100 mile range. That's more than enough for your daily commute going to the grocery store, as you mentioned. Probably
I mean, it's like, I think that was, range anxiety is not rational, as in, I think even the early EVs, like the GM Bolt, they were that was their idea, was, hey, we'll deliver a vehicle that doesn't have, so you're not going to go on a road trip with it, but it'll be your electric around town car.
Right.
I think for the US buyer in particular, when somebody buys a car, they in their head say, what is the most exciting thing I'm going to do with the car this year? And it needs to meet that need. So
they never do it anyway.
And then it might even be over 4 years. It's like, why do people buy pickup trucks? It's not because they're hauling things around every day. It's because one day, it's like they will feel really good when they need to dump a mattress in the back and they're able to do so. And so I think when you're making a big purchase like that, you like purchase for that tail event. And that's just the reality of the consumer buyer.
Is that America?
That might be, that's me indexing to the American buyer because I'm more familiar with that.
Yeah.
And I think the neighborhood electric vehicle segment is really interesting and hasn't been penetrated with a compelling product, and it could be.
Interesting.
As in, they all look like golf carts right now, and they're expensive golf carts.
Right.
But I always thought, I never understood why Apple didn't go after that segment. If they were going to do a car, why not do like a $15,000 Apple car that was an around town car, or $20,000 even, and you have like a set of buyers who would probably be like, oh, that's it. If it looked cool,
Yeah.
like you would massively open up your design and engineering space because you're no longer designing it to hurtle along the highway
Right.
at 70 miles per hour, right?
Yeah.
And so it could be like a really interesting product.
That's interesting.
Now, on the robotaxi side, you know, there, because it's driving a bunch of people around, you still need a relatively big battery because they'll probably have to go 200 or 300 miles, maybe even in a day, right? And so then it's like you actually don't get down to that small battery size.
That's interesting. So your thought is this next vehicle that Tesla might announce wouldn't necessarily be something smaller battery. It's robotaxi is the direction.
I think so. And I mean, if I had to guess, I think that there's a optimization they could do in providing a robotaxi that at least has 2 or maybe 4 separate passenger compartments that are independent of each other. As in,
Oh, wow.
because so part of the problem with robotaxi, in our view, is that you'll massively increase the number of miles that people drive on roads,
Okay.
because it's going to be much less expensive and much less convenient to ride around in a car.
Sure.
And so it's like, I don't go to downtown LA because it's like an hour and 15-minute slog, and it's, you know, expensive in an Uber, and driving myself, it's like, you
Exhausting.
know, exhausting. But if instead of costing $3 a mile, it costs 30 cents a mile, and I'm just riding in the back seat, not only will I do it, everybody will do it. And so traffic will get worse because the pain of sitting in traffic isn't as high, and it's not as costly to go from place to place.
Sure.
Okay. And so then, like, you know, Uber had this great idea. They're like, we'll do Uber Pool. People will save
along
money
the route.
to ride with other people along the route. And
But that's weird.
people didn't use that because then you're like sitting next to a stranger, right? You know, and so you definitely won't want to do that in a robotaxi, because in a robotaxi, you're either by yourself, you don't even have the Uber driver, right? You're just by yourself or with a stranger. No way you choose the stranger to save yourself like 5 cents a mile, right? But if you can create a robotaxi that has like separate compartments that open up, and it's like your own little pod, and since it's like, you don't actually care how long it takes anyway, because you're just, you know, whatever, watching Netflix anyway, then you could have something that enabled that kind of pooled concept to work.
That's interesting.
They might do that.
Because they also have some FCC patents that, in my opinion, are starting to suggest maybe they're trying to get Starlink into cars. That could potentially align with this idea. Who knows?
Sure. I mean, I think that Starlink on all, I mean, you know, they already have Starlink for RVs. I think that, you know, and this is Sam's work, who covers reusable rockets for us, but we think there's, you know, tens of billions of dollar opportunity in attaching Starlinks to moving our low Earth orbit satellite constellation comms to moving vehicles.
Cars, planes, RVs, boats, whatever.
Maybe it's, I think there's then you're weighing like, the cost of the antenna versus like the utility you get out of having it on the vehicle. But it seems like if they're doing something like enabling people like connectivity in their ride, absolutely makes sense.
So that's actually interesting. So initially, because y'all have a very strong bull thesis on self-driving auto taxi, I think your Tesla projections almost exclusively, in your bull case, give most of your weight to the taxis.
It's like two-thirds of the value of Tesla from 5 years from now is, in our view, driven by robotaxi, versus one-third to electric vehicles. And but I suspect the product they'll release will be this is an inexpensive vehicle platform to manufacture that's optimized for adaptation to robotaxi, but also we can sell it into people who, you know, are the kind of like median car buyer, not just the average car buyer in the US, which is a lower price point.
So that would be the $25,000-ish car plus maybe some inflation since then. Right.
And yeah, I don't know what the price point would be, but think about, you know, half the cost to produce of the Model 3. And so if the average Model 3 is selling for 50, maybe 25 or 30.
And why do you think they would announce that now?
Why? Because I think that they are gearing up to manufacture it, because they are...
Even before Cyber and Semi?
Well, no, I think
Yeah.
as in they'll announce that they're doing it, they'll reveal, just like they did with the Cybertruck, they'll reveal what it looks like,
I see.
and then they'll go through kind of engineering for manufacture, and so that'll take a year or two.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so all in on Tesla except when Jerome Powell gets angry, huh?